Hi buddy, Andy here again. Well, I've been absent for a while because I've been doing something that I love to do, DJing on the radio. And Hastings Rock, the 28 days of broadcast ended last night at midnight, or just after actually. A great time was had by all, and a full 28 days seems to have been very well received broadcast. All the listeners that were there last night, and thanks to anyone who's watching this who may have come along last night and has listened and supported the station and myself on my shows over those 28 days. It's been great. We've had a blast. But as a couple of people have said to me today, actually, how are you today then, Andy? Because it's one of those things, and talking last night to several of the DJs as well, sort of sharing experiences and sharing my experiences, there is a real sort of come down from it, because it's one of those things. As I said in an email to a friend earlier today who actually posed the question, how are you now, Andy? Is you're doing that for 28 days, and possibly before as well. I'm not actually even on the committee anymore, or the chairman or anything like that, so that makes it even harder in some respects, because you're even more involved and there's always more things going on and it really takes over your life. But even as a DJ, especially when I'm doing the local music stuff as well, so there's all the preparation and that, so there's a build up to it, and then doing those shows throughout the month. And for the past, well, not today obviously, I would have been on air at this very moment last Saturday, but for the past 15 days I've been on air, had a show every single day, and as you can imagine, that really starts to take over your life in a nice way. But you're so wrapped up in it, you're sort of going along, and then literally at midnight or just after midnight last night, someone flicked a switch and it was all gone, finished. Dead air, silence, hissing from the radios, the transmitters turned off, and everybody sort of turns around and thinks, what now? What do I do now? You know, and there is a real sort of come down, and it can be quite an emotional thing at times, especially at some years. I'm feeling it today, as I said, because I would normally be on air, and you're sort of thinking, oh, should I be somewhere else? Should I be doing something else? You're getting the photos are turning up. I mean, okay, this is one that I was taken of me yesterday on this phone, as it happens. But other people are posting comments on Facebook, and people are commenting on that photo and other photos and liking them and sharing their memories and all this sort of stuff. So it keeps it going. Maybe you shouldn't be watching this sort of thing. Maybe you should sort of step away from it and keep away. But you can't help it, you know. It's nice to sort of relive those sort of memories. But I suppose it's the same for anything, really. You know, something good has to come to an end, and this happens every year that the broadcast is on. 28 days comes and goes, and you're wrapped up in it, and you keep going and you keep going, and then suddenly, flick of a switch, it's all gone. And as I said, some years are worse than others. Not too bad this year, but you know, it usually takes a couple of days to sort of get over this sort of the come down, shall we say, and that sort of sense of loss, and you wonder what you're going to do. There's always other things to do, but you sort of feel like putting them off for a day or so and going out and having a few beers and trying to forget about it or something like that. Making a video possibly doesn't help. Maybe it does. Talking about it, I don't know. But some years are worse than others. The worst year for me actually was talking to people last night was a couple of years ago, because at that time I was the chairman of the station and obviously was on the committee as well, and we were in a new venue, so there was all that sort of build up to that and arranging all that sort of thing. When the broadcast started, I was the one that flicked the transmitter on and actually played a few tracks for the first 15 minutes of the actual broadcast, started it off, then went home, and I had the honour and the privilege of actually finishing the broadcast and doing the last show as well. And the last night's always is quite a weird one, but that particular year, I remember thinking, wow, you know, the next couple of days I was really quite sort of down in the dumps, and that real sort of sense of loss, and you know, quite an emotional sort of thing. It's very hard to explain, I suppose, unless you've done something like that that comes to an end like that. And I say, a couple of other people last night were sharing that experience, finishing that show, and how I do it on the last night. I'd never used to enjoy doing the last night because there's that sort of build up and sense of expectation, or you know, the sense of loss that's coming at the end of the show. It's your last show for that year, and there's all that sort of build up. How are you going to feel? Some people are quite emotional at the end of their shows, their final show, which once again is quite an understandable thing. I tend to manage to hold it together, but then I need to go sort of sit down in a chair out the way for sort of 10 minutes, quarter of an hour over a beer or something like that before I can sort of face the rest of the people, because what happens, there's so many people there on the last night, which is absolutely brilliant. They all want to have a chat, and you want to chat to them, of course, and they want, you know, to, oh, just seeing it, because we have screens throughout the pub, so your broadcast, I mean, this particular photo, that's taken by the camera, so we've got big TV screens throughout the pub as well, so people can actually watch what you're doing in the studio, so there's a sort of a sense of pressure on that as well. I tend not to think about it, because you can't, you don't want to think about it too, and you play up to the camera. I've got a plastic guitar, which we pretend to play, you know, and all this sort of stuff, and so you sort of ham it up a bit and have a bit of fun. I always have fun in the studio anyway, so I enjoy what I'm doing, as I'm sure all the other DJs do. But I need that to sort of stop and sit down and just chill for a little bit before you go and face the masses. Sounds inflated, but that isn't what I mean it to be. But you sort of feel you need to just sort of sit down and relax for a little bit, and then think, right, okay, I'm ready for it now. Everyone deals with it in their own sort of way. I'm sure some people don't feel this sort of sense of loss, or whatever you want to call it, as much as others, but others feel it more than others, and that's the way that it is. But talking to people last night, it's quite surprising how many DJs feel exactly the same way. I know the listeners have got that sort of sense of loss, and they're all talking the same sort of thing to that, oh no, it's gone for another year. Just imagine what it's like when you're actually involved, and it is part of your life, and you're there putting it together, doing the shows and everything behind the controls, because you actually have to take time out of your day to go along there. No one gets paid for it and all that sort of stuff. I mean, but we do it because we love it, and the reaction that we get helps as well. So anyway, thought I'd just share that. You know, if anybody thinks, oh no, you're a bit down in the dumps today, Andy, or any of the other DJs that you might meet, there is a very good reason for that, and that's what it is. It is that sort of come down, as we call it, after the broadcast, and probably you may well have done something like it as well. And if you have, let me know. I'll be interested to know what your sort of shared experiences might be as well. Anyway, I'll speak to you again sometime. Goodbye.